Hey, what's up? It's GC Kinsey, and today I'm going to be sharing some practical tips for training your voice in a more masculine direction. Within the trans community, it's really common to see a lot of resources and services available for voice feminization, aimed at those who already underwent a testosterone-influenced puberty. But you don't really see nearly as much of that on the voice masculinization side. And that's because one of the permanent effects of testosterone is a drop in your vocal pitch. So if your voice already dropped because of testosterone and then you start transitioning with estrogen, that is not going to undo that voice drop or raise the pitch of your voice. You have to undergo training to achieve that. Whereas for transmasculine folks, the assumption is just that we're going to take testosterone, it's going to lower our voices, and problem solved, right? But of course, that's not a correct assumption. Not every transmasculine person can take testosterone or wants to. It's not right for everyone. And for some of us, we may be planning to take it, but we're not at the point where we can start yet. That's the boat I'm in right now. I do consider myself lucky in that I have a voice at the lower end of the pitch spectrum for someone assigned female at birth, but I'm also aware that it's still not low enough in pitch to get regularly interpreted as a masculine-sounding voice, and that's a pretty big contributing factor to a lot of the social dysphoria that I feel as a result of getting misgendered every time I open my mouth. So, prior to hormones, or for those of you who aren't planning to go on hormones, how do you get your voice sounding more masculine to alleviate that kind of dysphoria? Lately, I've been looking into this, and I've even started doing some voice work. And if you go back and watch some of the videos on my cosplay page from several years back, you might actually be able to tell.
This is GC Kinsey Cosplay, and I just wanted to do a quick demonstration of my half metal arm that I wear for my casual Bucky from Civil War.
So, how did I go about this change? Well, first I read everything and watched everything I could find about voice masculinization. Unfortunately, there's not a lot out there. There's some, but not a ton. There's actually a lot more out there about voice feminization though, so what I had more success doing was taking those tips and applying them in reverse. And now I want to share what I've learned with you using some practical demonstrations and advice that's hopefully easy to digest. The first thing to understand is that your voice will not get lower in pitch without testosterone. Of course, you can try speaking at the lowest end of your vocal range. You can maybe push it or stretch it down a little, but you're not going to get that kind of significant voice drop like you would on T. Unless maybe you smoke regularly, but I can't in good conscience recommend something like that that has a negative effect on vocal health. So if you're trying to sound masculine and your voice is high in pitch, unfortunately that is going to work against you. But don't worry, because pitch isn't the only thing that's important. There are two other major factors that contribute to how voices tend to get gendered, and those are resonance and delivery. Resonance is a way to describe the color or timbre or sort of tonal quality of your voice. So while you'll hear pitch described in terms of high or low, you'll typically hear resonance described in terms of bright or dark. Delivery is about the way you speak, so things like your mannerisms, your inflections, your speech patterns, and those can give off some social cues that people associate more with masculinity or femininity. Resonance and delivery are two major areas that a lot of trans feminine folks train their voices on to help sort of balance out a lower pitch that can come from testosterone. And conversely, for trans masculine folks who are not on testosterone, we can also use resonance and delivery to balance out that higher pitch. So let's break down resonance first. And the biggest thing to understand about resonance is that a brighter sound is more associated with femininity, while a darker sound is more associated with masculinity. And if you've ever looked up any voice masculinization tips, one of the biggest things you'll see is that to get a darker resonance, you want to drop your larynx and create more space in the mouth. Now, if you're like me and you hear this and go, okay, what the hell does that even mean and how can I control it? Here's an easy place to start. Look at what happens to the space in your mouth when you smile. It compresses the space, right? And it brightens up that vocal resonance, and it's going to sound a lot different from a darker resonance when you're expanding that space. So the way I started darkening my resonance was literally just to smile less. When you first start doing this, there is a risk that you might sound kind of bored or tired or monotonous or even kind of angry and salty because you're not smiling. So it does take practice. But you really do just want to focus on lengthening and expanding that vertical space in your mouth. And then once you've kind of got the hang of that, you can start introducing some smiles again. Now, when it comes specifically to dropping your larynx, a good way to understand what that position is like is to yawn. Oh, and you will feel it go down. And that positioning of your larynx is also going to help create more of that vertical space in your mouth and in particular in the back of your throat. So a lot of times if you look up exercises for voice masculinization, they'll have you yawn and use that as a way to get a feel for that position and then practice trying to keep your larynx down there. Something else that can contribute to your resonance is nasality. A nasal tone in your voice can brighten your resonance because it sounds kind of whiny, and people associate that with femininity as well. There is, of course, a whole level of misogyny to this that's too much to unpack in this video, but yeah, that's a thing. So if you're having trouble getting your resonance as dark as you want it, something that might help is pulling back on any nasality that you might have in your voice. A really fun way to practice resonance is singing. And that's because you don't have to worry about the pitch, right? The notes of the song are whatever they are, and you can't control that, so all you have to do is focus on your resonance. And you can play around with that in all of your different vocal registers, from all the way down in your chest voice, further up into your mixed voice, and then finally all the way up in your falsetto. And you don't have to be a good singer or even able to carry a tune to do this. It's just for fun and it's just for practice. And it's a really good way to get a handle on resonance if you find that you're struggling to do it in your speech. If you want to hear an example of what singing with a darker resonance sounds like, check out the video I am linking. Okay, so that pretty much covers resonance, and now I want to talk about the other piece, which is delivery. And this one can be a lot harder for people because things like those speech patterns and mannerisms tend to get ingrained in you from the moment you first start learning to talk. I know that was the case for me. So when I started training my voice to sound more masculine, delivery was the thing that required by far the most practice, and I'm still trying to get it right. A lot of times when I'm recording these videos, I'll even have to stop and go back and reshoot something because I realize I've slipped back into my older, more feminine speech patterns that I learned as a child. So how can you have a more masculine vocal delivery? Well, what I do is I lean into the deepest and fullest part of my voice from my chest, and I speak down at the end of sentences, and I try my best to use a confident and authoritative tone. And in case all that was clear as mud, let's listen to a practical example. Here is how I would order a pizza using feminine versus masculine delivery. Let's see if you can spot the difference. Hello, yes, can I order a pizza, please? I'll have a large cheese. I will be picking it up. All right, thank you so much. Hello, I would like to order a pizza, please. I will have a large cheese. I will be picking that up curbside. Thank you so much. Have a great day. For those of us who were assigned female at birth, we're taught that speaking lightly and smiling a lot and raising our pitch at the end of sentences and sounding kind of uncertain, like we're asking a question, is the ideally polite or pleasant way to speak. And it can be really hard to break that conditioning because there's this fear that we're going to sound rude if we don't speak that way. But think about it. Men don't speak that way and they don't sound rude, right? So guess what? This is just more BS from the patriarchy. What I have found actually happens when I speak with a more masculine delivery, particularly in combination with dark resonance, is that it messes with people's gender perceptions a lot, which I love. I get misgendered on the phone quite a bit less speaking like this than I used to before. Not 100%, but a good bit of the time. And I think that's because even though people typically wouldn't gender me as a man based on my pitch, they're picking up on those things like my speech patterns and my tonal quality that are not what they're used to hearing from a woman. So then they're kind of uncertain about how to gender me and they end up not gendering me at all. Non-binary mission accomplished. One tip that I've seen about delivery in trans masculine circles on social media is to pick a man whose voice you really like and use that as a guide. For me, those guides are Johnny Weir and Tim Gunn. And that's because they're both queer men, and I feel like something about their queerness kind of comes through in their voices, but not necessarily in a feminine way.
I mean, who knows? Sergei Voronov has been competing for a million years, and he won at the Grand Prix in Japan with consistent, excellent, quality skating. But he's really going to have to gird his loins at this competition to win.
I see part of my responsibility to the designers to be able to anticipate what Heidi and Nina and Michael will probably say about their work this season. Who knew?
So the way they speak makes for a great template for the kind of queer masculinity that I want to project. Before I wrap up, I want to address one other point. If you are taking testosterone and that's lowering your voice, can this kind of training on resonance and delivery still help you? And I think that answer is a resounding yes. It can really help ease you through the process of your voice changing, and it can make that transition sound and feel a lot more natural. Testosterone is a powerful hormone, don't get me wrong, but it's not a magic bullet. So those of us who are transmasculine can still benefit from vocal training just like transfeminine folks can. I've heard some trans men and non-binary folks on T complain that even though their voices are dropping, they're still being perceived as women most of the time. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that they have not yet unlearned the kind of resonance and delivery that society ingrained in them growing up. So training your voice on these things can really help enhance that drop in pitch you get from testosterone. It's also possible that testosterone might not lower your voice as much as you were hoping. Everyone's body responds to hormones differently. So if that does happen, then you may really need to rely on your resonance and your delivery to give you that masculine sound you're trying to achieve, and that's where training can also help. And when it comes to deciding whether or not you want to pursue training, there are some other factors to consider as well. As we age, our voices tend to deepen a little bit with time. So if you are a very young person and that has not happened to your voice yet, you might really benefit from this kind of training. Or if you have a really smooth voice as opposed to one that has a lot of huskiness or distortion. Society tends to perceive that kind of smoothness as more feminine, so again, you might be someone who benefits from this masculinization training. So, testosterone or not, it helps to think about what aspects of your voice contribute to the way people gender it and let that inform what kind of training you do. Alright, that pretty much covers all of my voice masculinization training tips. If you are looking to masculinize your voice, I hope you found this helpful. If you know anyone else who's looking to do so, please feel free to share this with them. I'm going to be linking to the voice masculinization resources that I have found in the description of this video. If you know of any other good ones, if you've got any personal experience, if you've got any comments or questions, please feel free to share that as well. As always, I would love to get a discussion going, and I would also love to get together a larger pool of resources around voice masculinization. I mentioned singing earlier in this video, and if you would like me to go more in depth about how I have been training my singing voice to sound more masculine, please let me know that as well. I've actually been training my singing voice for quite a lot longer than I've been training my speaking voice, and I feel like I've had better results, so that could be a whole other video of its own, and if you would like to see that, please let me know and I will make one. In the meantime, you can find examples of my singing right here on this channel. Some of my cosplay music videos actually showcase a lot of what I've been doing with voice masculinization training. I also have makeup demos and more vlogs like this one about my experiences as a queer person, so please feel free to check those out as well, and like and subscribe so you don't miss anything new. If you want to find me on other social media, I am GC Kinsey across all platforms. And I want to thank you so much for watching and for your support. I hope you learned a lot from this video, and I will see you on the next one.